Well, thank you for being here today. You having a good day so far? Amen. You experiencing God's presence in this place? Amen. 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 Thanksgiving's only a few days away. We already bought our turkey. We just brought it out of the freezer and put it in our refrigerator, getting it ready to cook up later on this week. We're excited about that. We have family coming down. We don't get to see our family too often, but they're coming down, and we're able to spend Thanksgiving with them, and we're so excited. And I know you're excited and planning for your Thanksgiving, and it's just a great time that we can spend with our families and remember God's blessings, all that God has blessed us with. You know, we forget about it sometimes. We forget about what God has really done in our lives. We forget about being thankful. We take for granted all that God has given us at times. We take for granted our house, our home, our family, the things that God has given us, the clothes that we wear. And today, for the next 2 weeks, what I want to talk about is the power of Thanksgiving. There's power in Thanksgiving. There's power in being thankful for what God has given us. And that's what we want to talk about. And today we're going to be talking about the power of thanks. And today I want to look at a very, very interesting story in the Bible about thanks. About some people who maybe took for granted for something that happened to them, that was given to them. And they maybe took something for granted and did not stop to show some gratitude. So I want you to open up to Luke chapter 17. We're going to be starting in verse 11. And we're going to look at a story about Jesus. And it says this. Luke 17, 11 through 18. Now on his way to Jerusalem, Jesus traveled along the border between Samaria and Galilee. As he was going into a village, 2 men who had leprosy met him. And they stood at a distance and called out with a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." Now, leprosy, if you don't know, many of you may know, but leprosy was an incurable disease, and it was a disease that caused sores on your flesh, and your flesh was a very painful disease. Your skin would actually fall off, and there were colonies for these people at that time. It was like a plague, and there was a colony, kind of a place where they stayed and they lived together so that they would not infect other people. In fact, in those days, they were considered by the Jewish law to be unclean. They were outcast from society. They weren't loved. They weren't visited, and I'm sure they're very hurt people, more than physically, probably very emotionally hurt people. And if it did happen that they had to leave their colony and go into the village, to go into a place where other people lived, by Jewish law, they by law would have to cry out, "Unclean, unclean, and unclean," to announce that they are walking through. How embarrassing to bring such attention to themselves about something that they really couldn't help, something that caused them a whole lot of pain. It was a disease that was just hopeless. If you had leprosy, you could expect to die being a leper. You could expect to die in this condition. But Jesus came, and they saw Jesus. So these 10 guys, they're all lepers. They all have leprosy. They see Jesus from a distance, and they've heard about Jesus. They've heard of all the miracles that Jesus did, and they saw him, and they got kind of excited. And they began to think to themselves, if we could just get his attention, if Jesus would just come over here, our lives would be different. Our lives would be changed. We'd experience a miracle that we've never seen before. Our lives would just go right back on track and not be the way that it has been. Could you imagine the excitement that these men were feeling? It was their only hope. Jesus was their only hope for their life to change, to see their condition turn around. And they yelled out, "Jesus, please help." And they're thinking, I mean, this could be the greatest moment in my life. This could be the greatest thing that happens to me if we could only get Jesus' attention. If he could only hear me, he'd heal me. In Luke 17:14, let's move on. When he saw them, he said, "Go show yourselves to the priests." And as they went, they were cleansed. This was a miracle, and Jesus said that if you just go to the priest and do like the Jewish law said, go to the priest and show yourself to him, you will be healed. A miracle had taken place. Their bodies were healed. Leprosy had gone. 10 people experienced a miracle that nobody had seen before. They were cleansed of leprosy, and it was something that was unimaginable in those days. The greatest dreams had come true. Their most outlandish prayer was answered. But verse 15 says something very surprising. It says, one of them, when he saw he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice, and he threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan, and Jesus asked, "Were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except for this foreigner?" All 10 people, they experienced this outlandish answer. Like they never thought it was even possible. It was this crazy prayer they were asking, this request they were asking God. They didn't even really, it was like their wildest dream just came true. 10 went on their way, 9 went on their way, and only one turned around and said, "Thank you." You can almost kind of imagine it, and Jesus being a little bit dumbfounded. Like, wait. Where did the rest of the people go? Where did all the rest? You mean you were begging? They were all crying out, and you all were in deep distress. You wanted me to help your condition. You knew I had what you had just to survive in this life. But only one came back and thanked God for his blessing. My question for you today is, will you be the one? In a culture of maybe where we take things for granted, maybe we feel a little bit entitled to what we have or what we should have, what's been given to us, and what the blessings that we're able to experience in this world of abundance and blessing that we live in. Do you know how good that we have it because we live in the United States? Did you know that because we live in the United States, we are in the top 3 to 5% of all the world? Did you know that we experience blessings and freedoms, and even if the poorest person here is richer than most of the world? We've got clothes. Actually, we look in the closet and we become a little bit confused as to which piece of clothing to wear that day. We look into our refrigerator and it's full. We've got plenty of food for this week. We can eat 3 square meals a day. In fact, we can snack in between and still have plenty more food. We have cars. Most of the world, believe it or not, do not have cars. But here in the United States, we're privileged to have that mode of transportation. We're privileged to have paved roads. We're privileged to all have a job that pays our bills and be able to provide for our families. So will we be the ones that turn around and thank God for that? Will we be the ones that pause and just say, "God, thank you. Thank you for what you've given me. Thank you for your blessings. Thank you for my job. Thank you for my husband. Thank you for my wife. Thank you for my children. Thank you for the home that you've given me, as small as it might be, as quaint as it might be, as modest as it might be, or even as large as it might be. I thank you." Will you be the one? But not just with God, but what about people that have impacted you? Will you be the one that stops long enough to write a thank you note to express your gratitude to someone who's impacted you? Will you be the one that today to say to those who are ministering to your kids back there, thank you for investing in my kids? Will you be the one who will say, hey, thank you for praying for my kids? Will you be willing to go home and thank your wife for cooking that good meal? Will you be the one that will say to your husband, thank you for being a hard worker and providing for our family? Will you be the one that will thank your parents for raising you good and raising you right? We take so much for granted. We take so much things that we just think are normal, and we kind of feel a little bit entitled to these things. That this is just the way life is supposed to be. But many of the things that we experience in our lives are blessings from God. It's His goodness being poured out upon us, and we need to step back and say, God, we thank you. Thanks, God, for what you've done. Or will we continue to live with an ungrateful mindset? Unfortunately, that's what we've seen, and we all complain sometimes, and we shouldn't complain. That's what kept the children of Israel for wandering the desert for 40 years. They just kept on complaining. But we say things, and we get frustrated with people in our lives that aren't thankful. They don't have any gratefulness in their heart for what we've done. Many times, my children, I give them something, and I expect a thank you. I'm trying to train them to have grateful hearts. And there's something about when our kids come to us with a thankful heart. When they have hearts of gratitude, our ears are inclined. But just quickly, I want to show you an interesting story in the New Testament where Jesus told a story about a guy who had two sons, a younger one and the older one. In fact, both of them actually had hearts that were not grateful for what they had. They had an ungrateful mindset in both of these sons' lives. And let me just give you two quick phrases, and if you're taking notes, write these down. First of all, the first one is an ungrateful mindset. The ungrateful mindset says this. It says, I want it now. I want it now. I go to McDonald's and I've got to wait more than 5 minutes in line for my food. I want it now. What's taking these guys so long? I put that popcorn in the microwave and I get impatient and I start tapping on the counter. I want it now. Hurry up. We want it now. We want things right now. I want that new TV. I want it now. I want this. I want it now. We've been so conditioned in our culture that I deserve and I demand and I want it now. And you can see the same attitude in the younger son in the story called The Prodigal Son. And Jesus says this in Luke 15:11. He says this. There was a man who had two sons. The younger one said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. He said, I want it now. If you know, traditionally you receive your inheritance after your parents have passed, and because of their hard work and what they've done their entire life, they're able to leave some behind for those who are still alive. This young boy grew up in this home. He was able to experience the blessings of a hardworking father who was very smart with his money and was able to experience the blessings of God. And he said this to his dad, Father, I want it now. I want my inheritance now. I can't wait until later. I'm impatient. I want it now. I want to live my life up. I want to feel good and do all the fun that I could possibly do. Just give me my inheritance now. It took the father his whole life to save up for this inheritance. And here's this ungrateful boy coming to his dad saying, I want it now. What took his father decades to accumulate, the boy wasted in the amount of time of maybe weeks and maybe months. Many people, what took our mom and dad years and years to accumulate, we want it now. We want that nice house. We want those new cars. We want this and we want that, and we want all that they had that took them years, and we want it now. So we bust out the credit card. We start charging things. We want it now, and we start mismanaging it, and we start to go into debts because we want it now. See, our grandparents had this old archaic philosophy, and it's a good time to be talking about this as Christmas is coming, and we're going to be doing a lot of Christmas shopping over these next few years. They had this old archaic philosophy, and it was this: if I want something, I will save my money. I know, it's crazy, huh? I see some of you thinking, man, that's crazy. What do you mean? I only buy stuff that I have money for? I only spend money that I have. And this may be hard to understand, but basically what I'm saying is I don't buy things with money that I don't have. Some might say I can charge it and pay 24% for the rest of my life. I don't know, but there's this thing about credit cards I don't understand. I've gone through. I paid off credit cards, and I got sick and tired of paying debt. And this is the way that I see it. If you're going to be paying all the interest on things, why not pay it off? And all the interest that you're spending, all the interest that we're wasting about buying things for now, could be going towards other things. It's crazy, but it's this thing called weight. See, we're trained and we're conditioned that if you want it, you deserve it now. And the second thing is this: we feel like we deserve more. See, we got this young brother who wanted his inheritance right away, and he wasn't thankful or grateful for what he had, and he left and he asked his father to give him his inheritance, and he went and he squandered it, and he spent it unwisely, and he went through it like it was water. Then you have the other brother who did everything right. He stayed home, and he was faithful to his dad. And after his brother came home, his dad met his brother with open arms and put a robe around him, gave him a ring. And there's a great celebration. He told his servants, go kill the fatted calf. We're going to have a party. Steaks for everybody today. But the son was jealous. He said, I deserve more. I stayed in my father's house. I'm not the one that ran away. I deserve more. He had an ungrateful heart. And he said this in Luke 15:29. Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders, yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. An ungrateful mindset. And this is the time of year, this is the season when we need to just focus our attention on the blessings of God and what God has given us. Not what we don't have, not what we could have necessarily, but focus on being content with God, what God has given us. Because we have been blessed. God has provided for our needs. We feel like we're struggling. We feel like we're down in a hole. But God has provided for us. The older brother said, someone owes me. I deserve better than this, and I deserve more, Dad. And here's what we see so often. We hear this: I deserve a better paying job. I get a better paying job. I just don't want to work. I deserve these benefits. I deserve this vacation. I deserve this big house. I deserve this. I deserve that. We need to have thankful hearts for what God has given us. You know, it's so easy for us to fall into these traps of ungratefulness and unthankfulness. And we need to be aware of these traps and really just guard our hearts of ungratefulness. See, there's power in thankfulness. There's power in being thankful to God for what we've had. Power in thankfulness. What I want to do is I want to break down just 3 sections. I want to ask you to be really, really honest with yourself today. And I just want to kind of look into our hearts today as far as thankfulness and gratitude towards God. And see if God would expose any ungratefulness inside of our hearts today as we enter into this holiday season, into this time of Thanksgiving. And let's just deal with it biblically and deal with it in our own hearts. First one, if you're taking notes, let's ask God to expose any material or financial ungratefulness in our lives. You know, sometimes we're ungrateful for what we get a little bit discontent with what we have. We go to our friend's house. Man, they bought this new TV. Man, look at their house that they just bought. Then all of a sudden we look at what we have and we're like, what? This isn't good enough anymore. So that new TV they have, we think that we've got to go and get that TV. We're comparing ourselves with what other people have instead of being thankful for what God has given us. So we're out there and we buy that brand new Samsung TV that has the curved front, and it's right there smack dab in the center of Best Buy, and it looks awesome. The picture is crystal clear, and we want that. And then we start thinking, man, this house is a dump. I know we bought it 5 years ago, but man, it's too small. Man, when my kids grow up, they're going to have to share rooms, and I can't raise godly kids if they got to share rooms. My kids share rooms, okay? And we become ungrateful, and we think all these things about how this doesn't work for us anymore. We start comparing ourselves, and we see that car. And all of a sudden, we see that nice new car that somebody bought. We start comparing it to what we have, and we become ungrateful for what God has given us. Our car is paid for, bought and paid for. And then we see this car over here that man, is a nice, hefty monthly payment, but we'd rather have that monthly payment than have this car that we're thankful for, that's bought. Or that new cell phone that just came out. Man, I used to be the worst of it. I have an old one now, but every time a new cell phone came out, I'd be right there at the store and I'd buy it because I had to have the best cell phone. So we